Okay, lesson 73, more on radical denominators. We've done radicals in our denominators. We've even done binomials in our denominators. But this lesson we're going to do binomials in our numerators. Now, the problem with example 1 and all these examples, obviously, is that there is a radical in our denominator. You are not allowed to have radicals in the denominator, so what we are going to do is rationalize the denominators. Now, what we did in the previous problems, last week's lesson, is we multiplied the numerator and the denominator by the conjugate of the denominator. And what the conjugate is, it's the same terms but with a different sign. So if it's negative, you make your sign of the second term a positive. Now, the reason we do that is so that when we do FOIL, when we do our outer and our inner, they're going to cancel out. So this would be 6 square root of 3, and this would be negative 6 square root of 3, so they're going to add out. Whatever you do to the denominator, you also have to do to the numerator, because that is the same thing. Anything over itself is 1, and anything multiplied by 1 gives you itself back. So you're not changing the value of this fraction by multiplying the numerator and denominator by the conjugate. Now, the difficulty with these problems is that we have a binomial here and a binomial here, so we need to do FOIL, multiplying two binomials. It's as if we had parentheses around these. So let's just do FOIL. These get quite complicated. So if we do our first terms, that would be 4 times 2, that would be 8. Your outer term, remember you multiply the number in front of the radicals together. So we would get 4 times 3 would be 12 square root of 3. That's your outer terms. Now we do our inner terms, so that would just be 2 square root of 3. And then finally we do our last terms. So there's like a 1 there, so 1 times 3 would be 3. Square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is just 3. So that's your numerator. We'll have to clean that up in a minute. Denominator is always easy because we do our first term, which would be 4. Our outer would be 6 square root of 3. The inner would be negative 6 square root of 3, so they always cancel each other out. A binomial times its conjugate has no middle term. And then you do your last. Negative 3 times 3 would be negative 9. Square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is just 3. And now to clean it up a little bit, we get 8 plus 12, or it would be 14 root of 3. These are the like terms right here, plus 9 over 4 minus 27. And we continue to clean it up. We get 17 plus 14 root of 3. All over negative 23. Now, you'd be tempted to stop there, but it's not good to have a negative sign in the denominator of a fraction. So what we're going to do is multiply the numerator and denominator by a negative 1. And you'll do this in your head most likely. I just want to show you what you have to do with this. And so in the numerator, you're going to get negative 17 minus 14 square root of 3 over 23. Now the reason I put the parentheses is so that you remember to distribute the negative 1 to both of these terms. You can't just move the negative sign from the 23 up to the top without distributing it. Okay, let's try another one. That was the easy one, believe it or not. Okay, multiply the numerator and denominator by the conjugate. Okay, the conjugate is just, whoops, I did it wrong. How about that? The conjugate is just we're going to be doing the conjugate of the denominator. So it's going to be the opposite. So it's 3 square root of 2 all over 4 minus 3 square root of 2. We're going to use FOIL. So we have 4 times 4 is 16. The outer would be negative 12 root 2. The inner is negative 8 root 2. And the last would be plus. We have a negative times a negative 2 times 3 would be 6. Square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is just 2. And then in your denominator, it's easier. First is 16. Outer and inner add out. And so we're going to get 3 times negative 3 is negative 9 times 2. Then you clean it up. So you get 16 minus 20 just making sure that I didn't make a mistake here. Root 2 plus 12, negative 12, negative 8, and I think I did make a mistake here. 16, negative 12, unless I copied the problem wrong. Let's see. I did copy the problem wrong. Okay, we're going to keep going. All right, so we get negative 20. Then in the denominator, we're going to get 16 minus 18. The numerator, if we add these together, we're going to get 28 minus 20 root 2 all over negative 2. Now with this one, you can see that the 2 would go into the 28, the 2 also goes into the 20. If it can go into both of them, you can divide it into both of them. If it doesn't go into both of those, you cannot cross this 2 out with only one of them. So I'm going to take negative 2 into 28, and we get negative 14 plus 10 root 2. So remember, you can't have this negative in the denominator, and this 2 divides into that and that, so you can do that. It's the same thing as if you factored out a 2 here and then crossed it out. All right, let's do the last one. Example 3. Multiply the numerator denominator by the conjugate. You can always stop the video and try this yourself and see if you got it, and then turn it back on at any point. Conjugate. Same terms, different signs. This one's really complicated. Okay, first, outer, inner, last. 3 times 3 is 9. Square root of 12 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 36. Outer is 6 square root of 24. The inner is negative 6. Square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is 3. Hold on one second, I have to check something. Okay, never mind that. And then your last term is negative 2 times 2 is negative 4 square root of 6. See how complicated that one is? Of course, the denominator is pretty easy because you're going to, your outer and inner will cross out. So you get 9 times 3 minus 2 times 2. And then it's a lot of cleaning up. Square root of 36 is 6. Square root of 24 is the same thing as the square root of 4 times the square root of 6. So that's going to be 2 square root of 6. All right, so let's try this. We get 9 times 6 would be 54, plus, we still have this 6 and this 2, so it's going to be 12 square root of 6, minus 18 minus 4 square root of 6, all over, we're almost done, 27 minus 4. And that ends up being, we have 54 minus 18 is 36 plus 8 square root of 6 all over 19, oops, should be 19 down there. What did I miss in the denominator? Let me see. 9 times 3, negative 4, oops, negative 4 times 2, I forgot the 2 down here. So it's 27 minus 8, which would be 19. All right, just be really careful with these. There's a lot of opportunities for mistakes, especially when you have things like this that you have to simplify. And when you have a negative in the denominator, you have to make sure you multiply top and bottom by the negative to get rid of it. So that is it for lesson 73.